In this video, we're going to answer questions about paying with your credit cards and using euros, how to order in a restaurant, specifically the names of the food on the menu. We're going to talk about weather expectation, whether it's in the winter, the spring, or the summer. And we're going to talk about using the Navigo card in the metro in Paris. Hi everybody and welcome to episode number 2 of Ask Le Frenchie video series, where you ask your questions and we answer them. So Colleen's gonna get started. You ready?
I'm ready.
Allez, on y va.
Let's go.
All right, the first question is from Rick from California. Have you ever done a traveling alone video? Will it be possible to eat alone in a nice French restaurant?
Hey Rick, we have not done a standalone video just about traveling alone, but there are many people who do travel alone in Paris. As for eating in restaurants, I don't think that you're gonna have any trouble. I would say make a reservation, obviously, if you want fine dining. I've had it happen where I was looked at a little bit funny when I was eating alone while Antoine was traveling. That was in a bouillon style restaurant. But I think that for the most part, the restaurant may put a stranger at the table to share with you. And I can tell you that on my first trip to Paris, one of the things that I really loved was sitting in a cafe and having locals stop by to have a cup of coffee and breakfast with me. So I don't think that it will be a problem, although it's not something that I'm an expert on. And you can find great information about that from solo traveler websites and solo traveler groups on Facebook and whatnot.
All right, question from Mary Elizabeth from Washington. Do you live right in Paris or on the outskirts? And do you have an apartment or house? And will you give a tour of your home with all the special things you've bought since moving to France?
Hi, Mary Elizabeth. We do not live in Paris. We live in a house with a garden, and it's kind of a little bit like what we had at home, and you can't find a big place like that inside Paris. It's mostly apartment living, and I need space. And as for having a tour of our home, well, you're inside our home right now, so this is about as much of a tour as I'm gonna give people of my home, because I really like privacy. But I do understand the curiosity and people want to know what it's like living here. And for the second part of your question, most of the things that we bought in France since we've been here are appliances and furniture and pretty mundane stuff. But we are starting to gather a few things as we travel through the countryside and find little gems throughout Paris. So if we do end up giving a tour, I'll show them to you then.
All right, next question is from Bruce from New York. In Paris, is it best or expected to use cash or card at restaurants and stores? And when making a purchase using a credit card, should you request to pay in euros?
Hi Bruce. The best answer is plan on using a card. Paris and France are really set up for contactless payment. If I'm thinking about the times that you would need to have cash, it would be, that some taxis don't accept credit cards, so you want to make sure that they accept a credit card. Or in a open marché, if you have a small artisanal, small farmer or someone like that, they may not be set up for credit cards. And the last thing would be adding a tip in a restaurant. In the US, when you're paying for your food and they have a slot where it says, what do you want to add as a tip? They don't have that here because the tip is included in the meal. So if you do want to leave a tip at a restaurant, you're going to need to leave some money on the table. But France is set up for contactless. And as to whether or not you're going to be paying in euros, you're going to be paying in euros because you're in France, you're paying with a euro. That's the currency here.
Next question is from Larson Perkins from Alabama. What should someone look for in an eatery with 1,000 of choices available?
Larson, that's a great question. It's actually something that we hear often because people get intimidated when they're looking at menus and somebody's waiting to hear what their order is, and it can be, pretty stressful. So that's why we've done some of the videos that we've done so people can see exactly what it is that you get when you order a beef bourguignon or a coq au vin in a restaurant. What does a charcuterie board look like? What is fondue or raclette? Like all of the different kinds of things that are very typical here. But what I would say the most is to know some basic vocabulary. Beef is boeuf, pork is pork, chicken is poulet, and remember that Google Translate is your friend.
So next question is from Yue from Singapore. Are the price tags in shopping area fixed or can we bargain?
Hi Yue. In France, the price that's posted is the price that it is, and that includes all of the taxes and everything. So it's not really a culture here for bargaining the way that it is in other places around the world. If it is your nature to bargain, that's gonna happen really like in a flea market or a marché, but they may be a little offended too. So for the most part, I would stay away from bargaining unless you get a real good vibe with this seller, because this is really not a bargaining culture. Okay, Antoine, Tammy from Alabama wants to know, we have a Navigo pass from our trip in 2017 that has been inactive. Do you think we can just reload it, or will we need to buy a new one? Our next trip is March of 2023.
Hey Tammy, the answer is yes, you can use your Navigo card. I believe a Navigo card is valid for 10 years. So if you bought it 3 years ago, 2017, and actually that's 5 years ago, you can bring this card and you should be able to refill it directly at the machine or go to the attendant. But if you want to use the machine, it's very easy. There is a little round tray in the machine. You put your card there and it will tell you how many trips do you have left on the card, and then you can refill it. It's actually a very straightforward machine. It's in multiple languages, including English, so that makes your life easy. But yes, your Navigo card is still good to go.
Our next question is a two-part. Emily wants to know, we have our first trip ever planned for Paris in December 29th to January 5th. Do you have advice on how cold it gets? And Michelle from New York wants to know, what is the weather like in March? Can we wear a light trench coat or must we bring a coat?
Hi, Emily and Michelle. So questions about the weather, we get this all the time, right? So Emily, you're coming in December, the end of December, early January. This is the time where it's supposed to be the coldest in France. And we just went through the warmest October in history in Paris. It was absolutely incredible. However, I don't think that it's going to be that warm when you come in December. But what I would recommend, because the issue with weather is it can fluctuate. It can be warm, it can be seasonally warm, and it can be seasonally cold. Do the 10-day weather forecast, and that's going to give you a pretty good idea. Because what I know for a fact is like beyond 10 days, it's really hard to predict the weather. Typically in December, it's cold. You need a scarf, you need a hat, you need a sweater, you need a coat on top to be comfortable. But it's always best to be ready to lighten it up if it's not that cold. And for you, Michelle, in March, it's supposed to be still a little bit chilly. We're not completely out of the winter. Like the coldest months are December, January, and February. So March, we're starting to get a little bit better weather, but we could still have a cold wave coming through and have a very chilly week in the month of March. So again, use the 10-day forecast, get a sense of what the weather is going to be for the next 10 days, and that will give you how you need to pack your suitcase, whether you should have a lot of scarves and hats and sweaters, or whether you should go a little bit lighter.
Now, Grace from North Carolina wants to know, are you subscribers of Patreon?
Hi, Grace. So no, we're not subscribers to Patreon yet. And for those of you who don't know what Patreon is, it's a way for subscribers and fans to, one, donate money, to contribute, or to become a member of some kind. So we haven't done that yet. And the reason why is because all this is really new to us. And we've been growing very rapidly with our content, which is really awesome, but it's going a little bit faster than us. And so we're trying to catch up, and Patreon is definitely one of the things that we want to start, but we want to create a couple of tiers where people could have a little bit more access to us. So we're formulating all of this as we speak, so I'd be looking for that in the early part of 2023.
Next question comes from John and Dina in Connecticut. We are visiting Paris at the end of November from the US. Can you share the COVID-19 protocols for museums and attractions at this time?
Hey, John and Dina. So the COVID protocols in Paris are very lax now. What they say is that wearing a mask is recommended but not mandatory. So in November 2022, which is the month that we're in right now, you need to have a COVID vaccine in order to enter the country. But once you're inside the country, nobody will ask you about that again. So if you enter a museum or restaurant or hotel, any kind of public space, nobody is going to ask you for your COVID vaccine. You're free to enter. Relating to mask, You will still see a lot of people in Paris wearing a mask, especially in the train and the metro when it gets crowded. Actually, Colleen and I do all the time because we travel so much that we don't want to get sick because this is going to slow us down. But you don't have to wear a mask. You're not obligated to have a mask or a proof of vaccine. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description to a website that will give you the information that is up to date right now. You may watch this video a month or 6 months from now and everything may be different. Hopefully we're not going to go through another COVID wave, knock on wood. But if we do, like, things are going to change. So I'm going to put a link to the website. You need to click on it and you're going to need to go and check it out for the time that you are coming to visit France.
The next question is from David in Stockholm. What is the best way to approach the Eiffel Tower? I'd like to reveal it in a better way than just taking the metro to Trocadero.
Hey David, I completely agree with you. I actually don't like arriving to the Eiffel Tower from the Trocadero. Right now it's under construction. There is a lot of construction and preparation for the Olympics, and I believe that the bridge right in front of the Eiffel Tower is going to be closed to cars and it's going to be a pedestrian walkways. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put a link here to some of the renderings of how that part is going to look like, and it looks stunning. Bottom line, Trocadero right now is under construction and it's not particularly nice. What we like to do is to arrive from the other side of the Eiffel Tower, on the other side of the Champ de Mars. There's a couple of stations that we use. The first one and our favorite one is École Militaire. You get off at that station and it's an easy straight line walk, and then you arrive from the big green lawn and then you have the Eiffel Tower all the way in the back. It's stunning. It's a long, nice walk, and then the Eiffel Tower gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you get at the foot. It's great. The other station is La Motte Piquet-Grenelle, which is on the other side. It's the metro line that actually goes over the bridge where you can see the Eiffel Tower. So La Motte Piquet-Grenelle, you exit there, and then you arrive from the other side, but the back of the Eiffel Tower.